kids, because I don't know, I would post them too. They're pretty darn cute. This next one, she's a famous radio show host, and she actually was in a BuzzFeed article I read talking about why she shares content about her kids. Basically, they're a little older now, and she says she always asks before she shares anything for fear of overexposure. Right now that they're a little older, they can consent and they can say, yes, mom, I want you to share that. No, mom, I don't. She also talks about her kids on her radio show. Will Smith, who doesn't love Will Smith? He posted this viral video though, and I think his kids didn't love him after this. They were a little offended. It was a birds and bees talk. We're gonna get to the next one. Gwyneth Paltrow, she shared this photo, right? Looking at it face value, it's not embarrassing, right? It's her daughter and her skiing, but her daughter commented on it and said, Mom, we talked about this. Like, I wish you asked to post this photo, because if you're a celebrity, you know, your name and your face are out there. Pink, this is her and her two kids. Again, not an embarrassing photo maybe. That daughter may look back years from now and think, perhaps, Mom, I didn't want you posting me in a swimsuit. But she was under fire earlier this year for posting a photo of her kids. Her son was naked on the beach. As a mom, any mom at the beach, when your kid's little, you don't really think much of it, right? But people were on her on social media. She says people went as far as saying someone should call child services because he didn't have a diaper on, and how dare I just like some of the nastiest things, she said. She cried after it happened. It was totally embarrassing. At this point, she says she's probably not going to share any more content about her kids. Moving on, we asked people about a week ago, tell us, are you a sharenter? Do you know a sharenter? Again, going back to that definition, overuse of social media by parents based on content about their kids. A lot of comments. I will say quite a few shares as well. We got some really, articulate engagement on this. A lot of moms, mostly, I will say, because moms are typically the ones that are the culprits, posting a lot about their kids. And they say, one woman, Beth Erickson, we overshare on Facebook because if I don't, our families will miss all of our kids growing up, the fun moments. She says she won't stop it for anyone. Heather Kramer, now that they're older, I share less. Usually I ask first. I'm realizing more and more that even though I think my friend list is safe, this isn't always the case. This woman says I posted more when they were younger until someone mentioned, there might be some creepers online. There's some other issues with that as well that we're gonna get to in a moment. I like this one. Rachel says, I am a sharenter, sharenting is me. So she defines herself as a sharenter, which is fine. That's totally okay. Another person said, I'm a proud sharenter. This one was interesting. I liked Tia's comment because she says, who decides what's oversharenting? Again, it is a subjective topic. So what might be oversharenting or oversharing for one person may not be for another. This person says they feel they share the proper amount, but they're always careful about the type of content posted. So we want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Are you a sharenter? Do you know a sharenter? Do you not care? Maybe you're like, okay, I'll post whatever about my kids and ask them later. My kids, I always ask them because I want them to be able to consent to this. In the meantime, drop comments in our Facebook Live post about what you think, if you have anything you want me to ask. We're with Counselor Ishai Busi now, and you run a family practice based in Portland, and this is kind of your forte, is kids and their families.
You're right. Right. It's what I do all day. Talking to parents, talking to kids, bridging some of these gaps, helping to make sense out of the craziness that is being a parent and also being a kid, particularly an older kid.
And I didn't introduce our guests over there. I'm sure we saw them as we were crossing through the studio. We've got Kathy Marshall. She's our 4 p.m. anchor. Ashley Korslin, our other 4 p.m. anchor, used to be on Sunrise. And Ellen Boynton, who you don't recognize from
Got
TV.
suckered into
I know, sorry. Here I am. We looped her in last minute because, Ellen, you've got what, 2 kids?
I have 2 kids, 2 boys, yep.
Yeah. So all moms here. Mike Benner's actually standing in the background and may be able to chip in a little bit. What's up?
How are you guys? Absolutely.
We have to get a dad's opinion on this too, but we'll get to these gals in just a moment. First, I want to start with you. This is a topic, again, as I've said, it's subjective, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we define oversharing?
So I'm glad we're talking about this because before this, parenting was so easy and non-complicated. So I'm really glad we get to add another variable here to make this, another thing to figure out as a parent.
Right.
So like you said, I'm glad you made that point about oversharing. I mean, it is subjective. We're trying to figure this out. And so like with a lot of things with parenting, we need to just be thoughtful and reflective and adapt and think for ourselves, what are my values as a family, as a parent, and with some guidance, right? With a little bit of guidance. So I'll share a couple things around this for parents to consider. So this notion of, this new thing, there's a generational divide. So kids today are growing up This is just part of their world at a very, very young age. Probably since birth or even before. Sonograms are posted, right?
Yeah.
So they have a digital footprint, whether they like it or not, really, for a lot of kids. That's just how it's going to be. And this is the world they're growing up with, and they're thinking about it in just a very different way than we are. Because for us, this is new and different. So we have a lot of context around what it's like without it and why we're doing it. It's just a very different frame. So we really need to learn from each other and have some perspective on it and try to empathize with their experience, because it's just not going to be the same as ours. So
well, no, get to your next point, because I have so many questions.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just jump into a couple guidelines or just things to think about, because there isn't a right or wrong generally. I mean, there might be some sort of boundaries, I think, that we could objectively say, we don't want to do. We don't want to shame our kids online, for example, or things like that. But some things that we don't always consider are things like, how will my child respond to this post that I share in 5, 10, 15 years? How might they respond?
When they're a teenager, when they're an adult. Yeah.
Right. How might they think about that?
Yeah.
Another thing I might consider is, how would I feel if this went viral? If this went all over the web with millions of people around the world looking at it, how would I feel about that? So that would be another consideration, right? It kind of changes a little bit, and then kind of thinking about, why am I doing this? Am I posting this for friends and family? Am I posting this because I'm wanting support and I'm feeling kind of alone? Parenting can feel lonely, and a lot of times we share because we want to know, like, we're not crazy, and sometimes we need to lighten up parenting and have some humor, so we'll post something. So we want to but we want to be mindful of that, because then it's like, is this really about me and my neediness, or is this really about my kid, or about sharing some information?
Well, and I think a lot of people think when you talk about sharenting or sharing, it's like photos, but it's not just photos. You said parents are seeking support. We see so often online, like some of my friends posting, oh, my kid's not walking yet, trying to compare them to other kids that age, or, oh, my kid's not potty trained yet, and just maybe some things that they seek out support for. I mean, is that wrong to do?
So I think, I don't want to say wrong. I think parents, we get enough judgment as it is. We need to not judge each other. We're all doing our best here to figure it out. I think the concern is how so the digital footprint means whatever we post, that's there for good. So when they're applying for colleges and jobs, it's there. Maybe we don't care, maybe it's no big deal. Again, how are they going to feel knowing that that's out there in the world, that you talked about their struggle with walking or sharing? The flip side is, I really get, as a parent, sometimes you just want to know you're not crazy. You want to know you're not alone, and it can be so validating to hear other parents, oh, my kid was going through that too, here's what helped. And it actually makes you a better parent. In a sense, in some cases, you're actually serving your kids and helping be a better parent by posting certain things. One thing to maybe think about it, if it is something around a struggle you're going through, is maybe not share a picture of your child, and maybe not share their name.
Okay.
And so share kind of, I'm going through this. I'm wondering if anyone else has gone through something like this.
It's interesting because you mentioned college admissions and maybe like job applications. If someone Googles you online and maybe they find, a parent, this is a little bit more extreme, but maybe your kid was in middle school or high school and they got expelled, and you start talking about it online, and maybe that could be detrimental. But going back to what we were talking about with younger kids, is it difficult though, because they can't, so say you're posting a picture of your photo at the beach, like pink, and your kid can't consent to that. They can't say yes or no, but maybe 10 years later they're like, oh, I wish you didn't do that, Mom, that's kind of weird. Is it difficult because kids, when most parents post about them, they're at that age where they can't consent?
It is difficult, and it's just such a tension between their consent or ability or lack of ability, and then our desire as a parent to post things and share, and like, where do we find that balance? And I think with younger kids, the reality is we're going to be posting pictures of our kids, our younger kids probably, but maybe just being a little more mindful and thoughtful about what we're posting, when, what our captions are as well. I mean, I think the captions matter because those go with it. So I think
stuff lives forever.
It lives forever.
And on top of that, I mean, this is a whole other subject, but I mean, talk about data and privacy. I mean, you've got these like companies that are mining people's data online, and they can mine your kids' data.
And that's the other side of it, is we kind of forget that this is information that is being used for these companies. They are learning about our children. They are learning about habits. They are using it for marketing. They are selling data. Like, we are putting that out there. And there is a dark side to the web, and people are using images in really harmful ways at times that they find online. So those are things we want to consider as well, because that is a reality. Everything that gets posted is there, and it's being used by people.
It's scary. Like, yeah, this is not something parents, luckily I don't have kids. I feel very blessed that I can learn from people around me before having children and kind of exploring this landscape, but it's really difficult because parents are all still navigating it, and now Ashley and I were talking about this earlier, this world of mommy bloggers. I mean, that adds a whole other layer because these people are getting paid to post about their kids.
Yeah.
I know that's maybe
tough.
not your realm,
it always feels like a conflict of interest a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what does it take to get views? What is in the best interest of your children and your relationship and their healthy development? And those often are going to clash, because once we get caught up in how many likes, how many follows, then it can be really difficult to focus on, is this the best thing for my kid? And you put money in it, and we're like, I think that's a tough thing to do.
A lot of people agree with that.
Concern.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, yeah, that maybe this isn't the right way to go about it. Exploiting or using your kids as sort of, I've seen internet props online to get money, but then there's a lot of people that are like, we should be able to relate on that motherhood level, and again, going back to the supports. So you had mentioned, before we get to our guest, you had mentioned when we interviewed with each other about a week ago that there's kind of an age limit you should, or a minimum that you should ask your kids if you can post something about them online.
Yeah. Starting middle school, I think that's a good time. 6th grade, that's when kids are becoming more aware of their environment, aware of social media, aware of posting, more self-conscious, and they're also stepping into an age where they want more autonomy. They want more independence and individuality. And so I think it's both respectful of them, and I think it improves your relationship and builds trust.
Right.
And it's really important for them.
Because if you do something and your kid isn't okay with it, it erodes that trust, and that's a big issue.
Right, it does. And if we want our kids to be, and all parents, we want our kids as they're getting older to be open with us, to come and talk to us. We want to feel comfortable and free. But if they think that every time they share something, it's going online, guess what? They're going to clam up. Done, I'm not sharing anything. And also getting permission from them is also going to make it a lot easier when we're out with them to take pictures. Because if they think we're going to post whatever we feel like without their consent, and we're like, hey, let me get this picture, this is so cute. They're like, no, I'm not, you're not taking a picture of me.
But mom's like, I want this to hold on to forever.
I'll sue you. Yeah. Which apparently in France, you can sue your parents.
Did y'all know that? Maybe that can happen in 20 years here. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
But no, I mean, this is all such good content, I think, for people to take away from, because again, this is such a new word, a new world parents are living in. And again, I'm not a parent, and I don't envy a lot of parents that are trying to navigate this. But I guess, Ellen, let's start with you, because I saw all of you nodding your heads that entire time. So it's good that this resonates with you. But how old are your kids again?
So I have a 13-year-old who is in middle school and a 9-year-old. So almost 10. Yep. And it's funny that you talked about middle school, actually, because as soon as my son entered middle school, that's when he started saying to me, Mom, don't post this online. Don't share this. And I didn't, it wouldn't have registered to me except that he started addressing me and saying, don't do this. So that's when I was like, oh, okay. And so I have started saying, hey, is this okay if I share this online, and kind of get his permission for something. So, and he's more than happy to tell me, Mom, do not share this, So
and you respect it.
Yeah, I try to, yeah.
I try to.
Some moments are just so great, No, I really do try to, yeah.
Well, and is it like the embarrassing stuff, or is it?
Honestly, it's all different kinds of things. If his hair's not just right, then sometimes those are things that he doesn't want me to share. I probably shouldn't be talking about it on a Facebook Live, right? But
you didn't name him. It's okay.
You don't know who he is. So at any rate, but he's sensitive to all kinds of different things. You never know what it's going to be that he doesn't want to have shared, and so you just kind of have to always be on alert. Whereas my 9-year-old, he's still in elementary school, still sort of oblivious, and I've taken embarrassing videos of him, dancing in the house or things, and I said to him, hey, I'm going to share this this on Instagram, which is mostly I keep to my family. But
okay.
he said that's fine as long as you don't share it on TikTok, because he doesn't,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
Yeah, that's a
Instagram.
whole
He's
new-
not on Instagram. He doesn't know that world.
Yeah.
But he does know TikTok, and so he said don't share it there because that's where the real people are.
The real, isn't
Yeah,
it funny
so
how it's gone that way? You know, like nobody,
Yep.
Facebook, kids
Yeah.
are like, what if I don't care about Facebook?
Exactly.
And then it's like you've got that certain generation that's like, oh, I'm only Instagram, and then now you're 9-year-old?
Yeah, 9-year-olds only on TikTok, which now, of course, I have to be on TikTok so that I know what he's doing, so I follow
You can
him.
keep track.
So yeah, that's why
Monitor.
I'm very social media savvy, right? Is because of my kids.
Yeah.
I have to know where they are, what they're doing, and so yeah.
Well, that's good. That was like, no, that's great that you have that perspective and that you respect your kids, and I'm sure it creates that trust relationship with them.
You know, you can always build on it.
Yeah, the counselor would say yes.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's great, and I think it's the other part of this is we're modeling something. I mean, I hear from parents every day their concern about their kids when they get older in those teen years about having good boundaries and what they post and be thoughtful and know if you're posting inappropriate things. Imagine that could go on every single wall all over your school and it goes to everybody. Just assume that that's going to happen, and we're wanting them to have healthy boundaries and all that. So it starts with us. Right? And so by just asking them and being respectful when we post stuff or asking their permission and their consent, we're modeling without even giving them, because we talk too much as parents, I do, you know, giving them, you know, lessons and instructions, just saying like, hey, I'm respecting you, and so this is just how social media should be.
Yeah.
We ask permission, we think before we post, hit that button, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's also great modeling.
And I want to get to Kathy, because Kathy, I know you have to get going and do work today. Ashley does too.
I have to go post a few things.
Yeah, what about your kids though? Because you were saying earlier, because your kids are a little older. How old are they?
I have a 30-year-old, a 28-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 15-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
So my older ones grew up in a time before sharenting even existed.
Sure.
So I let them decide what to share, and then I might reshare something that they've shared. But I'm a minimalist when it comes to sharenting. I think that there are some things that just should remain private. And I always say, is nothing sacred anymore? Nudity, no. I don't care if the child's 2 years old in a bathtub or 6 months in a bath. No, because that is going to come back to them. I'll tell you one thing that concerns me though, when I am a minimalist, I think, do my kids think I don't love them because I don't post all this stuff? You know, I mean, and so I do on their birthdays try to make a deal of something that's happened within the year. But on a regular basis, I don't. But sometimes I wonder, and you know, I think that can be an impact on the ego if they know their parents are posting, and I've heard kids ask their parents, how many likes did we get, Mom?
Oh.
I mean, that's a whole different self-esteem issue, I think, that is not addressed yet within sharenting. Is, you know, it's one thing for the parent's ego to get the likes, but then if the child, you know, if I posted about one child last week and this child the next week and this one gets more than that, I think there's an interesting family dynamic there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Ashley and I were talking about that earlier in the bathroom, because we were saying the mommy bloggers, this one mommy blogger came out and was like, oh, this kid doesn't get as many likes as my other kids. What's wrong with him? But it was more of a personal growth kind of post ultimately. But that's an interesting perspective.
I do love it from a perspective of keeping your family informed of everything that's going on. You know, if your family's not right in town. My mom's 88 and she has 21 grandchildren, and she lives for sharenting because she wants to know what's going on in everyone's lives. And that's so in that respect, it's a beautiful, you know, I guess, you know, it builds a lot within a family if you can have that sharenting, but no nudity.
Yeah. Well, that's when social media is really useful. I think my grandmother, who's 81, she's on it, I think, maybe 13 hours out of the day. Because that's like how she connects, you know? I mean,
if they'd only had this when I was young and parenting.
And even if it's the embarrassing stuff or the cute stuff or the funny stuff, I think, you know, it is helpful for grandparents and for parents that are disconnected in different parts of the country or what have you.
But that being said, I respect everybody's. I love to see other people's posts. I do. I just, myself, I tend to be a more private person. But that's not to be said that I don't enjoy what everybody puts out. I love seeing Ashley's twins and, you know, Mike's family and all that. But of course, you're usually posting about crime instead of the kids.
Well, and I should mention too, I mean, we are different, not necessarily Ellen or you, Ishai, but we're different because we're public figures and we have to be really careful regardless of what we put online, you know, whether it's our professional page or a personal page. But Ash, you are also a photographer.
Yeah.
So you take really beautiful pictures.
So I just love taking photos of my kids, like all the time. But on that point of like being public figures, so I have a personal page, Facebook, you know, and then my professional page, and I treat them both the same. So if I'm not willing to share it on my professional page, I won't share it on my personal page, because you just don't know who that's going to or who's going to see it. And if I have like a cute video or something more personal, I will just text it to my family. So like for the most part, I mean, I was like looking back through what I'd posted, just I'm like, but I think for the most part, I try to not, like what Kathy says, like nudity, or like I don't do that. I try to not share like embarrassing things or milestones for the most part about my kids. I like to call it like cherry picking what I post.
Okay.
So I will post like cute photos and cute things. If there's like a post that I want to make that's something I'm going through or something personal, it won't be about my kids though, or won't be their photo necessarily. But I also, because mine are also so young, I have 1-year-old twins. Like I'm not really at that phase where they're going to be sensitive, like maybe Ellen's the ages of her kids. So I'm kind of seeing this as a learning phase too, because I'm not having to go through it with like elementary age kids yet.
And I would, excuse me, in response to what Ishai said about the age, being that I do have older kids, I would go earlier than middle school. I would be the first, second grade, because they're going to know it's out there at that age. Even kindergarten. I mean, as soon as they can speak and understand the concept of your photo, mommy's page, goes out there. I would start the discussion well before middle school. Not to.
No, I think that's valid. I think we're learning as we go. I mean, I think we need to have these conversations, and we need to be thinking about it. And every family is different, and I think just that discussion with our kids and just being thoughtful and mindful. I mean, some kids are on social media at younger ages, some are on later. Some of us parents post a lot more and some less, and there's no right or wrong, but it's just being thoughtful and reflective and kind of empathetic with our kids and kind of thinking about them. There was real quick. University of Washington did a study and found that chilled kids are 3 times as likely as parents to feel like something that parent posted was inappropriate. Parents are more likely to be like, oh, it's fine, it's just no big deal, like it's just an innocent, and kids are much more likely to be like, actually, I'm not okay with that. It's a little embarrassing. I'd rather you not. And so it's like sometimes as parents we can get caught up in like kind of defending our position, like this is no big deal. And I think it's important that we get out of ourselves a little bit and be like, oh, but I might not think it's a big deal. I think it's just a cute, innocent picture, but it sounds like you do, and that's all that matters. That's good enough,
I was just going to say that a couple of years ago, before we had kids, I had actually taken a photo like at a family get-together, like it was someone's birthday, and I had taken a cute photo, and a couple of like our nephews were in it. And we were later asked, like I had posted it thinking like, oh, this is so cute, like to Instagram or whatever. And they're like, hey, can you take that down, like the parents? Because they were like, we don't do any social media of our kids at all, and they're very private. And so I'm sure like they see like the pictures I post, and they're probably like, even though they're just cute like faces of my kids, they're probably like horrified. But it kind of comes with like our job, like you talked about, like we're a public figure, and we want to relate to people who follow us and like us. So it is hard to like walk that line. And your kids are a little older than mine.
Yeah, I have 3.5-year-old twin boys and a 1.5-year-old girl. And real quick, just piggybacking on what you just said, we were somewhere this weekend, and I took a couple cute pictures, and later that night I was about to post one of them, and like, wait a second, I think there's a couple kids in that group that their parents don't appreciate, so I pulled back and I didn't post it. But I appreciate the diversity of this group, because Kathy mentioned she's a minimalist, and Ashley mentioned how she basically will post the same sort. If she wants to post a picture, she will saying to herself, I can do this on both of my professional and personal pages. Where I'm a little different is I don't think I'm a minimalist, but I'm not an extremist either. And then I also have my professional page and my personal page very different. So if there are loyal KGW viewers right now watching, they might have no idea I have 3 kids, because I think I've maybe posted once or twice to my professional page, and I'll just strictly do it.
That's why I made the crying joke.
Yeah, right.
You keep it as a news feed more.
But yes, right. But as far as getting to know our viewers and relating to them, I'll post about my St. Louis Cardinals till I'm blue in the face, so like people can relate to me with the love of sports or whatever it may be. So I just choose, and I don't know if it's right, I don't know if it's wrong. I mean, that's just the way I do it, and maybe my wife prefers it that way too. But as far as sharing, on my personal page though, it's tough. I mean, you don't want to overshare, but you don't want to undershare either. And a lot of our family lives across the country, so that's their way to see our kids, our family and friends, is to post. I'm not going to send a text to 97 people with a picture, so I'm going to do it that way.
Well, I think the difference too is we talk about oversharing and the definition of sharenting. And again, as we mentioned before, for those of you who are just joining us, this is a subjective term because what's oversharing to one person may not be to another. For some, it's fine to share pictures of your kids. Like Ash, you post beautiful pictures of your kids because you're professional. But, for others, they may be like, I don't want anything at all of my kids existing out there. So it's this tough line to walk, and I think again, we are unique in that. But I want to see, Wendy, do we have any comments from people? Not anything yet. Okay.
Everything's been covered.
Oh, good. Then it touches on it. Okay.
I think it's interesting too, and you guys made the point. I think our kids, as they get older, are going to help police this whole situation. I mean, because right now they can't run away from us, as we're taking a picture, but as they get older, I mean, heck, I do it with my own mother. When, I go back to the Midwest to visit, I'll be like, are you going to post that? Like, I don't want this posted, like, of me doing X, Y, Z. So I can get away, but, our kids right now can't. So as they get older, like Ellen has mentioned, I mean, they will police this.
Tell you.
They will self-police this.
I equated to the slideshow. When I was growing up, my dad kept slides of us, and we had 7 kids, and he'd get them out on Saturday nights, and we'd have friends over. We'd go, please, Dad, not the bathtub slides.
She's not aging herself at all.
It's always existed.
Yeah, it's always been there.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, that's hilarious. Aren't you? I'm just so glad Facebook wasn't around till I was like in college pretty much. Like it was not there like when I was growing up. So
yeah, and it's, I think, being used, it's again, like we talked about, it's generational and it's so different. There's so many platforms to share now, and you teach parents how to help their kids be safe online, but it's about parents being safe online too.
Yeah. I think it can be helpful I always talk about how I think our online world often mirrors our offline world. And so for parents, when they're concerned about what their kids are doing online, I'll kind of help them get some context, like how are they doing offline? So in this context, I kind of think of that in terms of, I do a lot of workshops and parent education stuff, and there was one talk I did, and my daughter was in the audience, and I think she was like 8 at the time, and she's kind of more of a shy kid until she's comfortable, and then very outgoing. And I shared what I thought was a really cute, harmless little anecdote about her. And she turned bright red and melted in her chair and was like so embarrassed. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's just so cute. Like no one cares, all that kind of stuff. Like it's fine. But for her, like it was really embarrassing, and she would have liked that I not do that. And here I am sharing her story.
Well, you probably did it
about
out of pride. I mean, as a dad, you're pride, and
it comes from that
you have
place.
pride, and you're proud. I mean, and a lot of the sharenting, I think, is driven by this pride.
Right. So the takeaway was, it's not about, I need to really kind of think about, it's not about that I think it's no big deal. I need to kind of have that perspective of how might my kid feel and put myself in their shoes.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Very thoughtful discussion. And like you said, diversity. I know we kind of got this together really quickly, but I really appreciate you guys all sharing your input, and of course you with your professional side of it as well. It's this tough question of balancing posting versus privacy, and we of course would love to hear from all of you guys online. If you have anything you want to share with us about whether you know a sharenter, or if you're a sharenter yourself, or maybe you just have some questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and we will absolutely respond. Thanks for joining.